Hey everybody, Mr. Macintosh here, and in today's video we're going to do a deep dive on how many M1 Apple Silicon Macs we can restore with Apple Configurator 2. Is it limited by the amount of ports that you have on the host Mac, by the bandwidth of each Thunderbolt port? Is there a hard limit on how many Macs you can connect? Is it restricted to the amount of space that you have on the host Mac? Well, guess what? I've got answers to every single one of those questions. We're also going to go into how this system works on the host Mac. Where are the files stored? What kind of files are in that folder? How long does it actually take to restore one Mac? Or how about 4 Macs at the same time? I've got a stopwatch here. I know how long it takes to do one. I know how long it takes to 4, and I'm going to go over it all in a live demo here. We got a lot to go over, so let's jump in and get started. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about is why would we want to do this involved setup? Why would we want to use a second Mac to restore macOS to an M1 Apple Silicon Mac? Well, there's multiple reasons. The first reason is the ease of restore and the speed of restore. You've seen my previous videos where I talk about the internal recovery. Like if I hold the power button, I'm booting into internal recovery, and I'm going to install macOS from Apple servers through the internet onto here. It's not internet recovery. I'm always booting to the internal recovery on this M1 Mac, but I'm downloading the entire 14 gigabyte Big Sur installer from Apple, and that usually takes anywhere between 1 and 2 hours. So that's the longest part. The second one is to use a USB flash stick like this or a USB hard drive to boot to recovery, and you're running the installer application off of this. This takes anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour. So that's the second fastest. But Apple Configurator 2 with a second Mac can restore macOS 14 gigabytes of installer in about 10 minutes average time. That is the fastest you've been able to restore macOS on one of these Macs since we've had NetBoot and Block Copy way back when. So that's the first reason. It's just the speed and ease of recovery. So if you run a business or school and you want to do multiple Macs at the same time, like a computer lab, you can plug them in this type of a scenario here with multiple Macs connected to the host Mac here and restore them all at the same time. And that's what I'm going to show you in a little bit later in the video, how long it takes and how many Macs we can do at the same time. Another reason, you have a Mac that won't boot, and this is basically SOS mode on a Mac. When you get and remember, the flashing folder icon is gone. It's no longer on Apple Silicon Macs. The exclamation point with a circle and then support.apple.com Macs Restore is what you will see if this Mac doesn't boot. So this is what happens when I power this on. So if I power this off and I power it back on, this is what we're going to get. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So we powered it off, and now we're going to power it back on. And that's it, immediately. Now you might think, okay, no big deal, right? We're going to boot into recovery. So we'll turn this off. And keep in mind, this is going to be a rare situation where this is happening. Currently, there's really no way to get the Mac into this mode unless, and I'll show you this later, I'll show you how we can actually reproduce this if you wanted to test this on your own. So now let's say, okay, I'll just boot to recovery. Just hold down the power button and we'll boot to recovery. No big deal, right? Continue holding startup options. Loading startup. Oh, shoot. I guess that's not going to work. So when you're in this situation, the only way to recover this Mac is Apple Configurator 2 with a second Mac. So now we've got that machine. We'll put this back here because we're going to restore this machine at the same time. And now let's talk about how to get these machines into DFU mode to get this started. I've got a Mac Mini M1 and I've got a MacBook Pro here that we can show you. The first thing you need to know is what kind of cables you're going to need. Basically, any charge cable that comes with the Mac will work. So the charge cable that comes with the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air, you'll see all the white charge cables, they work because they support data transfer. So that's the best cable to use. You can also use a USB-A to USB-C cable. That works if you have an older Mac that's a host Mac. As long as you have any Mac that can run macOS Catalina 10.15.6 or newer, you can have that as a host Mac. That's all you need. So you can use the Mac all the way back to, 2012 to be able to perform this action. So that's it. You can also use a Thunderbolt cable, but I wouldn't recommend it because I've seen some inconsistencies and Apple doesn't really recommend it either. You can also use a USB-C 3.1 or 3.0 cable that looks really close to this, but it looks more like a Thunderbolt cable. Those cables work too. It doesn't matter where you plug them in to the host Mac, but it does on the Apple Silicon Mac. For the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, you have to plug it in the plug closest to the screen, and on the Mac Mini, you're plugging in the closest to the Ethernet port. That's the plug and cable situation. The other thing you'll have to know is that when you first plug in the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro to the host Mac, it's going to power on. So you have to let that situation run itself out first, then we can get into DFU mode. So we'll let it power on and then we'll power it back off and we'll get this started. In the meantime though, let's get the Mac Mini booted to DFU mode. So we'll pull this up here so we can see a little bit better. And you can see we've got our HDMI cable, we've got our charge cable, and we've got our power. We're going to disconnect the power and we're going to let it sit for 5 seconds. And that's because the power supply holds a charge for maybe around 5 seconds after you unplug. So once that's decharged, then we're ready for DFU mode. And we'll also power down this. If you're at the setup screen, a quick tip is to do a Command Q and you can exit and shut down right from there. So now that machine's shut down and ready for DFU mode. Now we can go back to the Mac Mini, and the way to do it, because this can be a little bit tricky too, because, and remember, keep Apple Configurator 2 open so you know exactly when this boots to DFU mode and you're good to go. So you prepare the power cable, don't plug it in, just kind of get it lined up in the slot and get ready to hold down the power button, because you have to hold on the power button 1 second and then plug in the power. So here we go. 1 second, plug. Wait for it. There it is. Then plug it all the way back in. You're in DFU mode. If you hold it a little too long or plug it in before you press the button, the machine could, or the Mac Mini will power on, or it'll actually boot to recovery. So when those happen, you know you didn't do right. And also take note that the LED on the front will turn. You can't see with these bright LED lights that I have here, but this light is in amber, and that's how you can tell that the Mac Mini Apple Silicon is in DFU mode. If it goes into SOS mode, like this machine is, you'll see that if you have it plugged into a monitor, and this will be flashing in an SOS code in orange amber. So that's how you can tell if the Mac Mini is in SOS mode, where you'll need Apple Configurator 2 to reinstall. And then this is in DFU mode. Now we can put this MacBook Pro into DFU mode, and to do that you have to hold power, right shift, left control and left option for 9 seconds, then let go of shift, control option, and continue holding power all the way to 17 seconds. And I usually count that out in 1000s because it gets the timing down. And I've done this so many times that I've got this down to a science, because Apple's instructions can be a little bit confusing. But again, this is the perfect situation. I had a lot of users reach out, I can't get this thing into DFU mode, I'm having so many problems. This is the best way to do it. So here we go. Hold on power and the 3 keys. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000, 11 1000, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There we go. So now here we go. We've got 3 of the Macs in DFU mode, and last one we got to get is our troublesome one that we definitely have to restore. So we'll power this one down. And we'll get this one booted real quick here, and we'll be ready to do the restore. All right, power down. We'll do the same thing here. 1, 2, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000, 11 1000, 12 1000, 13 1000, 14 1000, 15 1000, 16 1000, 17 1000. All right. We've got all 4 Macs now in DFU mode. Now keep in mind, there's no way to really tell that the 2 MacBook Pros or the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro Apple Silicon are even booted to DFU mode. That's why you got to have the second Mac up, because you know for sure that these are booted to DFU mode. And that's kind of the problem here, because if you're having other issues and maybe it doesn't show you SOS mode, and maybe it's stuck where And this can happen with the Mac Mini too, where there's nothing on the screen. It should show you that exclamation mark, but sometimes if it doesn't, you might think the Mac is dead. Plug it into your second Mac first before you do anything, because it's possible that it's in DFU mode already. And you can disconnect this. See, we'll disconnect one, we'll plug it back in, and it'll still be connected to DFU mode. And here's what we're gonna do too. I'm gonna show you that cable. So we've got our USB-A cable here, and I've got a hub, a powered hub here, an Anchor powered hub that does power in and then also does USB-C. So watch this. If we plug this in here, we'll unplug this. We lose one of the DFU modes. We plug in we've got power in out of the laptop, and we can actually plug in the USB-C over here. And then we can plug the USB-A to the other part of the hub, and we should get our other DFU. And there we go. So that's another alternative if you wanted it to run some more cabling, because that's the other thing. How many Macs can you connect in this situation? We're going to go over that after we get this started, because it's going to take about 12 minutes to do all of them. So in that time, I'll talk to you about all these other scenarios. So we'll disconnect this, remove power, and we'll plug our main cables back in here. And this. And we're about ready to start. Okay, we've got all the Macs into DFU mode, and now we're ready to do it. Now, keep in mind, you can do single ones. You can just click this and just do this and do a restore here and do that. Now, remember the difference between the restore and the revive. I'll talk about that after we get started too. But now, if we want to do all of them, we can just select them all like this, or we can just click one and do Command A to select all. Now they're all selected and ready to go. This is where you got to make a decision here. Which way are you going to restore these machines? Are you going to be doing a ton of them? If so, you want to go to my link and download the IPSW files. And I've got all of these IPSW files here because Apple keeps an IPSW file of every single version of Big Sur for M1. They always release an IPSW file for it. So for example, if I wanted to move back to 11.0.1 here, I could just drag this over like this, and that's it. It's going to restore on all four. But let's say I just want to do the latest version of, as of this taping, it's 11.120C69. I could do the same thing. I could just drag this over here. Now let's say you don't have the IPSW file and you just want to do this one time. No big deal, and you have some time. Right click on it, do a restore, and it's going to download that entire 14 gigabyte IPSW and install it. But we're going to save time, and I'll put a link in the description. I've got my website where I keep all the downloads here that you download directly from Apple. I'll put a link in the description for that so you can download it yourself and have a copy. As long as this version of macOS is signed by Apple, all we need to do is drag it over here. And that's it. We'll get a new pop-up here. Now it says, do you want to install firmware macOS version 11.1 on 4 selected devices? Again, as long as this is signed, we're good to go. If it's not signed, I'll have another video in the future that's going to go over how to do that. If you want to downgrade all these, it's no big deal as long as that previous version, like 11.0.1, again, as of this taping, is still signed. So I could downgrade all 4 of these Macs to 11.1 if I wanted to, as long as it's signed. When they unsign it, again, I'll show you how to do that in the future. But again, we're going to install 11.1 on all 4 Macs. Now we've got our timer here so we can keep an eye on how long this is going to take. And we're going to remember the difference between the revive and the restore is the revive will basically just reinstall macOS recovery and on all 4 Macs and retain the data that's on there. So for some reason, like this guy, remember the one that was going to exclamation mark in SOS mode, I could reinstall macOS recovery to this one only because it won't take very long to do that. And then I could boot to recovery by holding down the power and reinstall macOS the traditional way. We want to get this done quickly, so we're going to click on restore. And what that'll do, and keep in mind that's destructive. All 4 Macs will be totally erased. Everything on the drive will be erased, and then macOS Big Sur 11.1 will be installed on top. So we're going to click on this, restore. And there it goes. Now, I've got this whole thing set up in a certain way because now we're going to start the timer here. Now we can get into the deep dive of what's actually happening here. And when I say command console, I've got all the things open here so we can see what's happening. I've got the temp folder here, which is stored in Macintosh hard drive, private temp. And this is where the IPSW is actually unpacked into the temporary direct. And what's interesting is that for how many Macs that you're restoring at the same time, it will unpack an individual folder. Now watch this, down arrow this, and we can actually watch the progress of all four. It's unpacking each one, each DMG and file from the IPSW in this folder. And as it goes, you're going to see each folder grow with the entire IPSW unpacked in each folder. And when the unpacking is complete, then it will transfer over to each Mac at the same time. And that's why I've got the second window open so we can watch this. We are restoring each system and we can see here the progress of each one. This is really cool. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of things that could go wrong in this situation. Now that we know and we're doing the deep dive to figure out how this is even happening, we can have a lot of problems with this too, because it all depends on how many Macs you're restoring, because each IPSW bundle unzipped is around 14 to 15 gigabytes. So if you don't have very much space on the host Mac, you will have problems restoring. So we've got a theoretical limit on the amount of Macs that we can actually restore on the host Mac. Now, if you've got a Mac with a terabyte of storage, you're going to be able to restore a lot of Macs. But the problem also comes in with how many connections that we can get. Now, that's why I brought my dock here, or my hub. Oh, see, we can look at this. It's building now. Look at that. We've got the build bridge version plist. We've got the build manifest. We've got the embedded OS firmware. We're definitely getting close here. We're building out, and all of them are building out at the same time here. So we're going to keep watching that. Oh, we're getting quicker here. Now we've got to installing system. And I've also, look at this. They're all coming alive now. And I've also got the activity monitor here. So you could see that it was transferring anywhere between 100 and 300 megabytes a second disk activity. And that's why I want to have the activity monitor so you can actually see this. And now we're down to anywhere between 20 and 100 megabytes a second. When you get to the progress bar, it's actually installing in the system, and you can see that we're on the second step here, installing the systems. So it's installing macOS Big Sur because we've unpacked all the pieces here, and now we're in the second part, and we're 3 minutes in. So now it's probably going to take about anywhere between 8 and probably 7 and 8 minutes now to finish the install part. So now they're all coming up. Okay, so we've got all of them restoring now, and I had to troubleshoot because the other mini didn't like the VGA adapters. Hopefully it will come alive here on HDMI when it comes live. So here we are 6 or 7 minutes into the process here, and we're getting very close because we can go back to the activity monitor, see we're very close to being at the end here, and we're in restoring system status here. They're going pretty quick, and you can see the activity. Here we are about almost 40 to 50% through. So we've got this rolling. So now we can talk about that size problem that I mentioned earlier here, in that you need enough space on the host Mac to be able to do the restores and unpack multiple IPSWs in this temporary folder here. As you can see, we've got 4 for the 4 Macs that we're doing, and I opened up my info on my Macintosh hard drive, and we're cutting it close here. I've only got about 21 gigabytes left. So if I attempted to install actually I could probably sneak one more in and be at the very limit where I almost got 5 gigabytes left. But if I tried to restore 6 in there, I would definitely have a problem. And here's what would happen. In my previous video, I said that each one would take anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes to restore. And that's true. And then I said it would double it because of the amount of time that would take. And the reason why I was wrong there is because when I was restoring all those at the same time, I ran out of space. So it was taking forever, and 1 or 2 of them finished. But that final one kept going, and I was like, well, what's going on? Maybe they're still all going here. It was because I ran out of space. The entire hard drive was filled up when these were when the IPSWs were unpacking in the temporary folder. Now, if you've done this with Intel devices, and here we are, we're getting very close. We're at 9.25 minutes here, and we're getting very close. You can look at the activity here. We're at about 80%, so we're getting very close. I've got another file location here, and this is in Users Library, Group Containers, Apple Configurator 2 Library. This is where the BridgeOS files are kept. If we're using Apple 2 Configurator to restore BridgeOS, which is the operating system that runs on Intel T2 security chips, that's where this is stored. So I wanted to show you that other location if you were wondering where that's stored. So then, for example, here's the BridgeOS IPSW file, which is 500 megabytes here. Now that's the size of that. And like I said, that's when things can go wrong when we're doing the restore. Another thing I wanted to talk about too is you would think that this is a factory restore, right? When we're doing this and we're using IPSW to restore it, there's another problem that I wanted to talk about. And this is going to be the next video after this one. And that's how to factory restore your Mac. When I say factory restore, you think, okay, that's what I want to bring this Apple Silicon Mac, the way that it was shipped from the factory. No data is on there. And in this situation, we get very close. But there's something that we need to talk about, and that's non-volatile RAM or NVRAM that stores settings that you need. And here we go. We're rebooting now. Oh, we've gone blank here, blank here, blank here, all at the same time. We're getting very close. We're at the very end here. And even on the progress meters here, or the progress bars here, we got a chime, and we're booting here. Great. And look at this. I'm not going to stop until we're at the setup assistant here. Oh, look at this. We're moving. We're losing machines here. And we got the other one. The Mac Mini just booted. So we're going to get really close to being stopped here. And we got an error, so we'll take a look at that in a second here. We're booting here. We're almost here, almost at the setup. Look at this. Almost all of them at the same time. Look at that. 11 minutes and 36 seconds to restore all 4 Macs at the same time. Now, we'll troubleshoot the other Mac Mini in a second, and I think, and we'll let this finish here, because they're all going to go at the same time. Great. So now we're done. Now, we are all at the setup assistant screens, okay? We're good to go. Now, look at this error that we're seeing on here. The system could not be restored on this device. The device is not connected. We don't have to worry about this error. Because this error, you can get this error, and sometimes one of them might not finish restoring. But if these machines come all the way back up to the setup assistant, you're done. If you get this message, it's still possible that there was a timing problem where it lost connection because you saw them all disconnect here, and then they all came back up, and maybe it said it didn't do its final check-in. But again, don't worry about that error if we're all at the setup assistant screen, and as you can see, all 4 of them are done. So we'll hit stop here, and when you're booted and you connect them to the host Mac, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see them in a lock mode. These machines are done, and again, under 12 minutes, 4 Macs at the same time. This is going to be so efficient. I'm telling you, institutions, schools, recyclers, resellers, anybody that needs to restore macOS in a very quick fashion. Again, you can take each Mac and plug them in one by one, but as we could see here, when we connect the hub here, so let's say we connect this hub and we go 1 USB-C port and maybe 2 USB-A's. So it's possible that maybe we could do 3 Macs on 1 port. Takes the same amount of time to restore. So we just did all 4 in the same amount of time, and it took 1. So again, really cool how fast this goes here. So let's talk about a couple of the other things that we might have to think about when we're working on this. That was what I was talking about before, is the non-volatile RAM before they all finished. And we were talking about a factory restore. Now look at this device here. What do you see there? You see a connected Wi-Fi. And you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute. How in the heck can this thing be connected to Wi-Fi? I just restored macOS. And you won't be able to see this, but this Mac Mini is connected because it's way up in the corner. It's also connected to Wi-Fi. How in the heck are we connected to a Wi-Fi when we just restore the machine? I think this is an Apple bug. And again, at the time of this taping, it's 11.1, and this could be fixed in the future, and I'm going to report this to Apple. But it did not remove the non-volatile RAM of Apple Silicon Mac. And that's, again, stored. And remember when you used to do the PRAM, you hold down Command Option PR, and that would remove the non-volatile RAM, and that would have things like the startup sound volume, and that's where it also stores the Wi-Fi, too, the Wi-Fi information for your Wi-Fi, and that's how that's able to connect. If you want to remove that information, you're going to have to use the NVRAM command to do that, and there's a -C to clear that, and then to do that you got to get into recovery and do that. But the way to fully do a factory restore is to run the Apple option. It's called Erase Mac. Now when I say Erase Mac, there's a special option within Recovery Setup Assistant to do the Erase Mac, and that's going to be the next video, and that does clear out the non-volatile RAM. So when you run that, that's a full erase. And honestly, this should also do the same thing. If I'm doing a restore on all these, I want these things clear as day. So I think, again, that's a bug, and it doesn't get that cleared out. I'll try to report that to Apple, and in the future it might work, and maybe 11.2, 3, 4, 5 it'll be fixed, or a new version of Apple Configurator. At the time of this taping, it's 2.13.3, and I'll let you guys know if that's fixed in the future. Okay, two more things I wanted to go over. Remember I was telling you about my site for the IPSW files? This is the site that I was talking about that has all the IPSW files, and these are directly from Apple. So when you click on this link, and you can see down here, it is updates.cdn.apple.com, and it's the full link. So these are pulling directly from Apple's servers, so you know that you're getting. I would not download these from anywhere else, but directly from Apple. If you go to a website and you do not see that the link here, or when you inspect the link, is directly from Apple, don't do it, because you don't know. Okay, and again, I'm not saying that another site is going to put malware or something into the IPSW, because remember, that's why you need an internet connection to do this. And that's the other thing that I wanted to mention. You cannot perform this restore unless the host Mac is connected to the internet and can communicate with Apple to check the signing and personalize each installation. So if I removed Wi-Fi from here, it would fail and say an internet connection is required to do this. Even if somehow they were able to manipulate the IPSW, it should fail the personalization check to say that this is not a valid macOS Restore IPSW. But again, it's always safe to pull it directly from Apple server. So again, we talked about the signing. The signing was another thing. So far, there's only two IPSWs that are production version at the time of this taping, 11.01 and 11.1, and they're both still signed by Apple. And that's why we can downgrade with no issue right now, because they're both signed. Now, when it's unsigned, that's going to be a whole nother problem. We're going to have to do with boot security and all these other things and make a working system and then change it with an administrator in the recovery. And we'll go over that in the video, how to do that. Once Apple stops signing, I'll show you how to do that. That's the IPSW files. I hope this video created value for you. If it did, it would help me out if you give this video a thumbs up, because it helps pass the video to people who need it. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, click on that subscribe button. And if you're a current subscriber, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being a subscriber to this channel. And we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks a lot.